Hello everyone. Today's video is with a very special person. His name is Steve Reece. He's like the ultimate person to talk to if you want to know how to source your product, get make India as the major manufacturing hub for your products. And what's really exciting about this call is he's going to give us a perspective from the outside. So we have a bunch of questions lined up for him, and yeah, let's not waste any more time and dive deep into this. So, Steve, how's the
Hi.
day today?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for really accepting to do this video at such a short notice.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's my pleasure.
How do you see the Indian market? And do you still feel that Indian market is yet to grow and kind of adopt such products? And at this point of time, we should be looking outside the borders of India, or what would you recommend for someone like us?
So that's a very simple question, but there's quite a lot in it. So I think the first thing is you have to. So India has a large population, but it doesn't currently have a huge gaming culture. But also games can be international. So I would say to anybody, why would you start only with one country in mind? This is an international business. Now, the challenge is that board games are very cultural. So the types of games that work in one country very well might not work in other countries.
That's true.
And at this moment in time, maybe it's not quite as established what that culture would be within India. But certainly, I think there are some themes that are universal for gaming and good games that are fun to play, but also are developed on a level that true gamers will acknowledge and like playing. There'll always be a home for those games.
Right.
So in a way, I think if you were to try and only work in India, I think you'd find it quite frustrating, and in the end, not that rewarding yet. Now, obviously, markets are changing, and the two fastest growing markets in the world for the last few years, you're talking China and India,
correct,
as much as anything based on population and the developing economies.
Right.
So I think as we are today is one thing. As it might be in 5 or 10 years is different. I think we'll be looking at something quite different if you were starting in 10 years' time. But if we deal with reality now, the challenge is the traditional Indian toys and games market is relatively small.
Yes.
Despite the size of the population, and that's mostly due to, as I understand it, and I spoke to quite a lot of people in India who know more about this than me. So this is not just me as a UK guy telling you about the Indian market, but my understanding is, I would say 1.3, 1.4 billion people. Yep. There's a growing middle class or upper class, financially speaking,
right?
And therefore, the audience is growing, but there's still a very large audience,
right?
Where the costs are not really there,
right.
The budget is not really there to buy more expensive games. And traditionally, India was considered kind of a cheap, a lower price point market.
Yes.
And products were geared with a very low spec to give it the best chance of getting some wide appeal. But when I talk to Indian toy and game distributors currently, they talk about a relatively low volume market.
Right.
Those who are working with plastics, it's quite hard for them to justify the tooling for the plastic.
Right.
Whereas an established company in the US or the UK would have to work a lot less hard to justify that. And if you had full distribution across India, you would still probably struggle to justify it partly. So actually, my recommendation would be probably to look at. Indian themes are okay, but they should be international Indian themes. So rather than being very deeply into culture, religion, or differences between areas, people, cities, languages within India,
right?
Of which I know it's almost, especially for someone not from India, a baffling complexity of kind of different people and
right.
Cultures,
it's
to make
all
it
about
more
diversity
generally
right now,
themed.
right? So,
but then also to think about like global themes. So, what global theme could work in India and could work anywhere else? In the end, that's always going to give you the biggest opportunity.
Right. So I was actually thinking about all these board games like Jaipur, and as
Yeah.
soon as you see that, you'll be like, it gives you the feeling of being at a market in Jaipur, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and also the second thing which works for us is there are a lot of Indians all over the world,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure that also adds to the market in some way, if you
Yes.
export,
I think it does. I think the challenge is partly that becomes a little bit niche, and
right?
serving niche markets it can be a little bit difficult.
Right.
But I think in fairness, we have like the world's biggest and best marketplace for niche
Mm.
products in Amazon. So
Right.
whereas 10, 15 years ago, when Amazon wasn't as established in a lot of major markets,
Right.
it would have been harder. I think you can always find a path to market now, and that leads me to the third suggestion.
Yeah.
So we spoke about going the publisher model,
Right.
trying to persuade the publisher to launch it, and launching
Right.
it yourself directly.
Right.
It's kind of a hybrid, which is to go directly to the gamer, and obviously crowdfunding is a big part of that nowadays. Either Kickstarter or
Yeah.
Indiegogo.
But in India, it's still crowdfunding is still like nobody trusts.
Right, but the only thing I'm saying is if you design from India for an international audience, in the end, most stock, as I understand it, on Kickstarter campaigns that work, mostly it starts in the US, and
Yeah.
then if there's any international sales, it gets shipped.
Exactly.
But that's my point. That's my point. I would look beyond the boundaries of any country right now, because the world is increasingly connected in a smaller place.
Right.
It may not work directly as a path to market within India, but I think more broadly, it does work. The only thing I would say is I've spoken to both key people at Kickstarter and to people who've done Kickstarter campaigns.
Right.
It's a very intensive process. It's almost
Yes.
like having a full-time job
Yes.
for that period of time.
Yes.
And obviously, so I guess the challenge is if you have something which is very specifically for India, that's probably not an opportunity.
Right.
But also, I think one of the other challenges in India is, as I understand it, distribution is very, very fragmented.
Yeah.
Now, for those kind of, I don't know if we still even would use this word anymore, Western people, I'm talking about Europe, and North America.
Yeah.
Um,
Supermarkets
we're
and
used
places like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're used to some complexity in distribution. And
Right.
some countries are easier than others. I'm from the UK. The
Right.
UK is probably one of the most kind of centralized markets
Right.
and least fragmented. Germany is quite fragmented.
Oh, is
India
it?
goes even further beyond.
Interesting. Okay.
So, as I understand it, there are relatively few specialist national chains. A lot of it is what our American friends would call mom and pop stores.
Right.
Independent traders. So you need like a whole network of distributors and wholesalers to hit
Right.
the market.
Right.
That's the other challenge within India is even if the demand is there, is actually how do you reach the
Exactly.
target? And I think the
Right.
thing is for you because you're probably looking at this towards the start of what is likely to be a
Yes.
real upward growth curve.
Right.
So you will feel these challenges a lot more than people who will come in the future. You're kind of trailblazing on the manufacturing side,
Yeah.
and you'll solve a lot of the problems. And then on the distribution side, it's the same thing. But I still think the third option is to look at direct consumer. But
Yeah.
you have probably the most challenging market,
Yeah.
I've come across in terms of how you would do that.
Right. It's very very it's very small. Like for example, the last 2 days. I mean, the last weekend rather. We spent 2 full days at Comic Con in Bangalore. It was
Right.
epic. It was so epic. I mean, last Comic Con, we didn't have products. We just had samples, and all that we did was we kind of educated people that it's high time India got a cool toy and games company, and that's exactly what our mission is. And they were like, "Oh, very nice. So when can we expect your products?" And we were like, "Probably 4 months or 3 months from now." So
Yeah.
And this Comic Con, it was a whole different thing, right? We had more than two products. I mean, like 2, 3 products, two, 3 games rather, and I mean, we actually had products to sell, and people would come and the whole experiential engagement that we had there, right? I mean, people were seeing the product, they would touch it, they would hold the box in their hand, and they
Right.
couldn't believe that it was made in Bangalore. Um, and actually after playing the game, they were like, "Did you design it?" We're like, "Yeah." you know so it was very interesting, and we sold out every box of that of the game.
Brilliant.
And it
Brilliant.
was we were like, the rest of the day we were like, what do we shut shop and go, or we just make them play with the demo sets and tell them, if you're interested, go online and buy it. We'll give you the same
Yeah.
discount code or something like that. And luckily that's what
Yeah.
had happened, and we shipped out products yesterday. uh, so that's when I was thinking, an experiential, uh, a platform where you can actually get people together, like random people. It doesn't have to be a particular target segment, because you still don't know who gets. Like when we started, we thought we should just market it to game gamers, like experienced gamers, and then we realized our game started becoming like, the first board game that a person would buy. That's what started
Yeah.
happening. And 90% of our
Right.
customers are like first time board gamers. They've never played a board game in their life. And that was very interesting, and I'm so glad we learned all these things in the last 16, 17 months, that we can actually
Yeah.
take these learnings and go ahead and focus on the right people, you know
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not just push it down someone's throat who's actually a experienced gamer, which is very, very,
Yeah.
very niche segment in India. um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now, as you suggested, I think we are really, really motivated to start exporting, and I think it's
Yeah.
not a big deal, especially with Amazon and things like that. We can just
Right.
ship it to US, and they will take care of the
Yeah.
shipping and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
So I think one of the interesting things you said there was about games that are more accessible. I
right,
think one of the mistakes that people who are really into games make when they start a new company is to go like really hardcore, because the reality is, and this is just a general rule, there are exceptions to this. But like if you launch a mass market game, which is very simple and it's really successful, it will sell 10 times more
yes,
than a kind of a gamer's game.
exactly,
Now, if something gets Game of the Year in Germany, it will sell a lot more.
yeah,
One of these kind of, I guess you would call them gateway or crossover games, like a Carcassonne or something. Over time they prove to be very successful.
yeah,
Also, but the trick is in removing barriers to people getting into play. So some of this is the same for any kind of game, which is the quicker someone can get into actually playing the game,
right,
the better. But then they'll actually play the game. If
right,
it's like, I mean, I've been to Western before and said, I've got like 15 minutes. Can you give me a quick idea of how this plays? And the demo of the explanation of the rules is not finished in 15 minutes.
yeah,
Now that is an extreme person
right,
who is going to take 15 minutes, and God bless them. I'm really grateful that they're out there. And personally, as a gamer, I'm not one of them. I need to start playing quite quickly, or my interest will go.
right,
And the reality is, most of the people in the world who could play board games, who might like to play board games,
right,
are closer to what I've described there than wanting to take 15 minutes to understand a game. I had many years ago. I was responsible for managing a board games. At that time, it was a portfolio within Hasbro.
wow,
Avalon Hill Games, which originally was a company and blah blah blah. And there was one game, and I won't name the game. It's not necessarily the name of the game, but it was based on a theme that my wife really liked. And so I said, well, let's play this game. You'll enjoy it. And she said, okay, yeah, great. And because she liked that theme or that topic, she was very interested. But it took me about 45 minutes to set up all the pieces. By
oh
which
my,
time she was long. She was long gone. She was long gone. So do you know what? As a game, it was a great game. It was actually a really, really good game.
okay,
But I wasn't going to be able to play that game with that person. And there's the other thing: is a lot of times someone who's really into games
right.
doesn't always have someone as equally really into games.
I mean, there's so many ingredients that goes into making a good game successful. Oh my goodness.